This is the Life Truth Network. Welcome to Life Truth Presents, a clean fiction podcast. If it's clean fiction, it's fair game. My goal is to come alongside Clean Fiction Magazine over at cleanfictionmagazine.com. They sell their quarterly publications on Amazon. If it's not the type of thing covered in CFM, I want it to be here. That gives you, the listener, access to even more clean fiction. You could even hear interviews, game reviews, featured audio drama reviews, and some of the dramas themselves. I want this to be big. Welcome once again to Life Truth Presents. Today we look at another in the Oz series as done by Radio Theater Project. Hear a classic comedy bit from a classic comedy team, interview old-time radio podcaster Keith Heltsley, and discuss one resource that will enhance your Christian faith. It's out. Clean Fiction Magazine's Spring 2023 Kindle edition is out and available on Amazon. Check cleanfictionmagazine.com for more details. This issue contains my first 10 reviews as well as the first installment of the expanded Stronghold serial. You'll also get to see the third installment of Her Father's Mantle by our editor Amy Lynn McConaughey. Today I want us to look at Marvelous Land of Oz by Radio Theater Project. The genre is fantasy. The Radio Theater Project has many great shows for all ages. Once again, they featured a classic. The Marvelous Land of Oz follows Tip and his friends as they find themselves in the middle of a rebellion against the Scarecrow of Oz. There's plenty of adventure here as the friends try to figure out how to deal with this revolution. There's no romance. There's no religion mentioned. There is plenty of magic in Oz, but no bad language, no drugs. Again, this is a classic tale, and it was a fun listen. It is split into 2 parts. It is freely available on the Radio Theater Project feed on Apple Podcasts, among other places. Be sure to check show notes for more details. As a disclaimer, the Radio Theater Project creates an eclectic variety of content, much of which is rated G, but not all. And we are not endorsing everything they do. The rating would be N, or a warning content, of 0. Keith Heltsley has been sharing old-time radio for an extremely long time. Let's hear what he has to say. We have with us today Keith Heltsley of the Retro Radio Podcast. You know, I like to share various sources of clean fiction, one of which is, of course, old-time radio, because back then the censors had common sense. They wouldn't let a lot pass. Nowadays, I think they're just purposefully trying to push the bar. Keith, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine.
So, tell us how you got started in dealing old-time radio.
Did you say stealing old-time radio?
Dealing, like the first one's free. And the second one, and the third one.
There's several people I know who are into old-time radio, and everyone has some story about when they were young, their family would listen to it driving to, someone relative's house or on a vacation. I suppose after much consideration, I probably knew about old-time radio from early on in my childhood, because it was one of those things my parents would tell me when I try to watch TV. They're like, back in my day, we couldn't watch TV. We could only listen to the radio. I thought, wow, too bad for you, I guess. But I was born at a time where the days of old-time radio actually ended officially 1 month before I was born. So wow. That's how old I am.
Wow.
And of course, there were some echoes of old-time radio through my first handful of years growing up. Much like these days, a TV show goes off the air and it's in the syndication, so you can still watch Gilligan's Island or Hillbillies or something like that out there. And it was much the same for me. I would listen to radio, especially at my grandma's house, and they would be playing an old episode of Fibber McGee and Molly or Jack Benny or some detective show or other. And so I kind of knew about it and I kind of had heard it from early on, but I wasn't really interested in it because, hey, I'm a kid. I'm into riding my bike, playing outdoors, rolling in the mud puddles. I didn't care about that. And I just kind of blanked out of my mind, I guess, for many years. In the 70s and into the early 80s, there was something of a revival where they had CBS Radio Mystery Theater was on, and a couple other ones, General Mills Radio Theater, and it was kind of an attempt to bring it back. But by then, people just weren't interested in it because TV had made such a big impact on people's lives, and it kind of fizzled. And again, I didn't think much about it. I'd sometimes listen to it, but not often. And then fast forward to about 2006. This by this time, while growing up, I've been in and out of the military. I've become legally blind and then totally blind. And I was just got up one morning on a Saturday morning, and I clicked on the TV and I was just listening to one of those public address TV stations where they put like local school happenings or community happenings. And in the background, they were playing an old time radio show. And I was just sitting there listening to the show. And like they say, radio is the theater of the mind. And it's like, was so well scripted, so well acted. You could just visualize it in your head. You didn't need to even look at the TV screen to know what was happening because it was just so well produced. And I thought, I need to find out more about this. And so after about an hour, hour and a half of that, I got up and used my computer to hop on the internet and found some podcasts out there. At the time, I could only find really two people podcasting old time radio, and I downloaded everything I can get my hands on. And over the next year, I just was downloading and listening and collecting, filling up hard drive space. I thought at the same time, about 2004, RSS, Real Simple Syndication, became a thing, and people were talking about this new podcast stuff. And I thought, well, I'm into web pages. I've been doing that for almost 10 years by this point. What would I do if I had a podcast? I thought, well, let's see. I could do, something related to playing a harmonica because I can do that a little bit, but I'm not good enough to really teach somebody how to do it. And I thought, well, let's see, I could do something Bible related, but I don't know. I don't know if people really want to hear me do that. Which
Apparently they do.
which would be prophetic because that's one of my main things I do now in addition to
Right.
retro radio. And I thought, this retro old time radio stuff is no one knows about it these days. I mean, someone needs to hear this. And I got checking, and of course, it is largely open source. It's in the public domain. There are rarely, but there are a few that are still copyrighted. Uh, it, but barring those, it's all public domain stuff, freely downloadable. And just like these two podcasting mentors who I found, I thought, I'm going to start doing that. So after a year of collecting about 2,000 radio shows,
Wow.
I'll start putting them out there. And I did a podcast initially. I wanted to do where I introduced the show and maybe talked, 5 to 8 minutes about this show, and then put it on, and then 2 times a week I wanted to do that. But I found out I didn't have a microphone that worked worth a darn. And so I thought, well, my computer has voice technology on it, and I invented Retrobots.
Oh, and that's where they came from, and they have been everywhere now.
And so my synthetic computer voice became my first retro radio host, and I thought, now I know people don't like to hear the robotic voices, so I purposely kept the intros extremely short. I mean, as short as possible, but it's good for basic introductions, but it's not really good for informing a lot about what I really wanted to do. But after about a year of that, I finally discovered, hey, wait a minute, my laptop has a microphone built into it. But it still was pretty lousy because it picked up all the hard drive noise and junk, and it was just hard to get a good signal through it. Eventually, I did get a microphone, and oh, 1 second, microphone off. My computer's trying to listen to me. Sorry about that. Uh, that's another story. But and so I started just recording. Now sometimes because got grandkids in the house mostly, they may hear it in the background, but probably not. Uh, I would sometimes have to lock myself in the closet or the bathroom or step outside on the back porch. But I always try to do an intro to the podcast. And after doing that for, let's see, 3 years, uh, yeah, 3 years or so till 2010. So it's from 2007 to 2010. I would just do that. And then I got my own web domain and moved everything I have officially to retro-otr.com. And then I started mixing in with my twice a week introduction shows. I would just start posting the straight up shows with no introductions to them. And I would just push them out as fast as I could. Uh, I would do as many as sometimes 6 to 9 posts per day, and I would handwrite all my show notes myself
Wow.
because I thought, the content's not original to me, but I wanted to at least in some way put my own originality to it, and show notes is the way I would do that. And so I would listen to the show, and as it progresses, for example, I'm listening to Jack Benny, and oh, it opens up with Don Wilson uh, introducing Jack as the best dressed man of the year. Jack and Mary comes out, and they joke about insert topic. Phil Harris comes out to add to the mix, and I would just make notes like that. And you may ask, well, why bother? Um, Well, as someone who wasn't all that familiar with old time radio, and there are archives out there, you can find them through internetarchive.org, through Old Time Radio Researchers Group. You get a list of the show titles, and it may be title of the show, the date, and it may be for the detective show. I might say case of Albert Higgs. I was like, I don't know what that means. And
You
so I thought,
wanted you wanted
huh?
to give more detail.
Yeah, and so if a newbie like myself was hunting through and they saw, oh look, Dragnet, the big chief. Well, this is the episode where Joe Friday and his partner call on a burglar case, and then blah blah, and whatever the general movement of the plot might be. And that way, if someone didn't know the exact title, they could research my show notes and say, oh yeah, that's the show I've been looking for, and they would know more than what just the title would call it.
Yeah. So what you're doing is you're giving people an additional service of your putting in the basically the back of the video. I don't know
Right.
if
Well, I'm not trying to transcribe it in any way. Although
right.
I thought about that, it was like, no, that's too much typing. And I've transcribed things before. It's like, no, that's just too much effort. But if I just kind of listen to it and give a general nudge and, okay, this is the topics that are talked about, this is the characters that show up in the episode. This week Superman and Lois are having an adventure with the Nazi Germany people, blah, and just give it a general feel for what you're going to hear. Another thing I find handy is there are music shows. For example, Grand Ole Opry has a certain number of shows that are open source out there. A little known show by the U.S. citizens at the time was called Command Performance. It was targeted for military troops serving overseas. So if you're in the military during World War II, you would be very familiar with that. But people back in the States at the time were not. These days, because of collectors, it's widely known. But all it really says is, the host is Bob Hope and Bing Crosby. It's like, okay, well, that'll be fun. But what exactly is in it? And so I'll just make a list. This song, that song, this character does this comedy bit, and I just make a playlist basically. And by that way, it also catalogs the songs. So if you're interested in hearing Kay Kaiser, big band orchestra guy, where he sings, whatever song, you'll be able to find it by searching for that, song or something. And I have had people do that with my website. They'll look for a particular song. Uh, they'll say, "Oh
Well,
yeah,
what
that's a
that
pretty good show."
that also makes the shows searchable by text, whereas they would not normally be.
Right. Yeah. And of course, every webmaster out there, whenever you're building a site and you want to see how you're doing in the rankings, you'll type in, oh, maybe your site title, and maybe it'll show up, or maybe you dig through 30 pages. Oh, there I am. Holy cow. Or so
That's probably me.
I would type in old time radio, and I would never show up until, at least like 30 pages down. If I typed in retro radio, would float to the top, you know, and then I got to where it's like I would just type in, like I'd be doing a research for, say, Fred Allen, who had a comedy show, is a vaudevillian in the era of Jack Benny, and all of a sudden, as a resource, there's my website. It's like, wait a minute, I don't want me, I want somebody else. And so I find that sometimes my site pops up because there's so many things I have posted that my site has become a resource for people searching for, George Burns or Lone Ranger or, something like that. And it's all
So,
because of the searchable text that's out there.
so you find it online. Basically, it's freely available with a few exceptions, and that's where you get your material. Is just the online hubs there.
Yeah. And I actually have been told to cease and desist once, and I did.
What
I can,
show?
it's actually it's a little tiny 1 or 2 minute show that was produced in the late 60s called Chicken Man. And it featured a actor named Dick Orkin, who was a very well-known and widely popular voice actor of that time. He did a lot with sales ads for TV and radio, and his stuff is copyrighted. And he has died some years ago, but his son sent me a letter through their lawyer saying, cease and desist. This is copyrighted material. Like, okie dokie, it's gone. Sorry.
Well, because that's just the honorable thing to do.
Yeah. But I was just going under the assumption at that point that, hey, it's out there, so it must be really available. There is another show. I'm pretty sure it's copyrighted. It's called Family Theater. Um, and I actually have pretty much the full collection of that on my hard drive, but it's not on my website.
Right. Well,
It's I say that was actually produced by a Catholic priest, and it's
uh,
so theologically, it's probably questionable. I don't know, but he didn't do it to push the Catholic theology. He did it to present family situations, like for example, a couple facing divorce, or somebody who was killed in an accident, or some other typical family situation and how they dealt with it and how they found answers through their faith. And that's kind of the gist of the series. It is a good series, and he was actually pushed by the Catholic Church to make it more religious. And he said, no, because I want to appeal to a broad audience. I'm not trying to push our our particular faith. I want people to find, their own faith, through Christ or so forth. But to find answers through looking to God, basically. And it was very popular for many years.
Well, never thought I'd say this on Zoom when it's just two people, but we are running out of time.
Yeah.
And I really want to thank you for coming on. And of course, this is your website. This is your network. Keith Heltsley is started life-truth.com, and he allowed me to tag along, and that's how the Life Truth Network was created. And so I'm really glad to be working with you and other things, and I'm really glad to have you on the show today.
Well, that's a short story to how it was created. It's a little more involved than that, and you actually have more input than what you admit.
Today, enjoy a classic I've been wanting to play for a while. A sketch by Abbott and Costello called Who's on First?
How do you like my wall club, Lou? Hey, all those people going to be at the game today?
Certainly.
Oh, this is going to be a whopper of a game.
Oh, it should be.
Hey, Abbott, I understand they made you the manager of this here Colgate team.
Why not?
So you're the manager?
I'm the manager.
Well, I'd like to know some of the guys' names on the team, so when I meet them on the street or in the ballpark, I'll be able to say hello to those people.
Why, sure, I'll introduce you to the boys. They give them funny names, though, Lou.
Oh, I know they give those ball players awful funny names.
Let's see, on the team we have who's on first, what's on second, I don't know who's on third.
You the manager?
Yes.
You know the guy's name?
I should.
Well, then tell me the guy's names.
I say who's on first, what's on second, I don't know who's on third.
You the manager?
And then, yes.
You know the guy's names?
I'm telling you their names.
Well, who's on first?
Yes.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
Who?
The guy on first.
Who?
The guy playing first base.
Who?
The guy on first.
Who is on first?
What are you asking me for? I'm asking you.
I'm not asking you, I'm telling you.
You ain't telling me nothing. I'm asking you who's on first.
That's it.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
Who?
The guy on first base.
That's his name.
That's whose name?
Yes.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
That's the man's name.
That's whose name?
Yes.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
Who is on first?
What are you asking me for? I'm asking you who's on first.
That's it.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
Who?
The guy on first.
That's it.
What's the guy's name on first?
Now, what's on second?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
That's what I'm asking you.
Now,
Who's
wait a
on
minute.
first?
Don't change the play.
I'm not changing nobody. I asked you a simple question. What's the guy's name on first base?
What's the guy's name on second?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who is on first?
I don't know.
He's on third. Now, we're not talking about him.
Look, you got a first baseman?
Yes.
Then tell me the fella's name playing first.
Who?
The guy playing first.
That's his name.
Wait, what's the guy's name on first base?
Why is the guy's name on second base?
Who's playing second?
Who's playing first?
I don't know.
He's on third base. What's the matter with you? Can't you?
Look, when you pay off the first baseman every month, who do you pay the money to?
Every dollar.
Yeah. Look, you got to pay the money to somebody on first base, are you? Does he give you a receipt?
Sure.
How does he sign the receipt?
Who?
The guy that you give the money to.
Who?
The guy you give the money to.
That's how he signs it.
That's how who signs it?
Yes.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
That's it.
That's who?
Yeah.
When you give the guy the money, don't he have to sign a receipt?
He does, Lou.
Well, how does he sign his name?
Who?
The guy you give the... You dope!
Now, take it easy.
You just don't give money to somebody without him giving you a receipt?
So who signs it?
What are you asking me for?
I'm not asking you. I'm telling you.
Well, go ahead, tell me. What's the guy's name that signs the receipt on first
Wait
base?
a minute. What signs his own receipt?
Who signs his own
No,
receipt?
who signs his?
I'm asking you, when the guy on first base gives you a piece of paper,
Yes, now
he
wait.
puts his name on it.
So who puts his name on it? What?
How does the fella's name on first base look to you when he signs his name?
Who?
To you.
That's how he looks.
How does it look to you?
Who?
To you.
Who?
To you.
Who?
When the guy signs his name, how does it look to you?
Look, that's how it looks.
Who?
Who?
I'm asking you, what's the guy's name on first base you give the money to?
Who? After all, the man's entitled to it.
Who is?
Yes. Sometimes his wife comes down and collects it.
Whose wife?
Yeah, sure.
All I'm trying to find out is what's the guy's name on first base?
What is on second base?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
I don't know.
He's
Third
on
base.
first.
I know that. You got an outfield?
Sure.
The left fielder's name.
Why?
I just thought I'd ask you.
Well, I just thought I'd tell you.
The left fielder's name.
Why?
Because.
Center field. You know these players as well.
All I'm trying to find out is what's the guy's left name in left field.
Now, what is on second?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
I don't know. Third base. You got a pitcher on team.
Wouldn't this be a fine team without a pitcher?
The pitcher's name.
Tomorrow?
You don't want to tell me the date?
I'm telling you, Lord.
Then go ahead.
Tomorrow.
What time?
What time what?
What time tomorrow you going to tell me who's pitching?
Now, listen. Who is
I'll
not...
break your arm, you say who's on first. I want to know what's the pitcher's name.
What's on second?
I don't know. Third base. You got a catcher?
Sure.
The catcher's name.
Today.
Today. You don't want to tell me today, tomorrow, do you?
I'm telling you.
So the catcher's name.
Today.
Today, and tomorrow's pitching.
Now you've got it.
Now I got it. Boy,
I got it. Now stop it.
Well, we got is a couple of days on it.
Well, I can't help that.
All right, you know, now I'm a good catcher. Now I get behind a plate, and tomorrow's pitching on my team, and a heavy hitter gets up.
Yes.
Now when he gets up, me being a good catcher, I'm going to throw the guy out at first base. So the guy bunts the ball. I pick up the ball. I'm going to throw the guy out at first base, so I pick up the ball and throw it to who?
Now, that's the first thing you've said right.
I don't even know what I'm talking about.
But that's all you have.
All I do is throw the ball to first base. Now who's got it?
Naturally. Now you got it.
If I throw the ball to first base, somebody's got to get the ball. Now who's got it?
Naturally.
Who?
Naturally.
Naturally?
Naturally.
So I pick up the ball and I throw it to Naturally.
No.
He gets the ball. Naturally gets the ball and
You throw the ball to first base.
Then who gets it?
Naturally.
So I pick up the ball and I throw it to Naturally.
No.
Naturally gets the ball and
You throw the ball to who?
Naturally.
That's
what I'm saying.
You're not saying it that way.
I said I throw the ball to Naturally.
No, you don't.
I throw it to who?
Naturally.
That's what I'm saying. I throw the ball to first base. Somebody's got to get it.
So who gets it?
Naturally.
That's it.
Okay. Now I ask you, who gets it?
Naturally.
Same as you.
No, it's not.
I throw the ball to Naturally.
You throw the ball to who?
Then who gets it?
Naturally.
He better get it. So I throw the ball to first base.
All right.
Whoever it is drops the ball and the guy runs to second. Now who picks up the ball and throws it to what?
Yeah.
What throws it to I don't know. I don't know. Throws it back to tomorrow. Triple play.
Could be.
Another guy gets up and hits a long fly ball to be called.
Yes.
Why? I don't know. He's on third, and I don't give a darn.
What'd you say?
I said I don't give a darn.
Oh, that's a shortstop.
Today, I'd like us to look at crossexamined.org. Dr. Frank Turek hosts a podcast as well as offers several resources to help grow your faith, all right there at crossexamined.org. While you're at it, please check out his and Norm Geisler's book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. It's quite deep, but it's definitely packed full of evidence for the truth that God is very real and can be known. I just want to end the show by reminding people that Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. He did not say, I am a way. He said, I am the way. As a true follower of Christ, we cannot say all roads, or even some other roads, lead to heaven. Jesus did not give us that option. Thank you for listening to Life Truth Presents. Keith Heltsley can be found at retro-otr.com and life-truth.com. Be sure to check show notes for other important links. Nathan Caldwell can be found at life-truth.com and is also a writer and a reviewer for Clean Fiction Magazine, which can be found at cleanfictionmagazine.com.